Welcome to the Radical Hospitality Show. I'm your host, Zeke Freeman, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Mike Stohler to the podcast. Mike is the co-founder of Gateway Private Equity Group, a hotel real estate investment firm. He brings a really fascinating background as a commercial airline pilot and a Navy vet. After pivoting, he spent a lot of time in multifamily, and then he pivoted to hospitality. He's finding a lot higher returns, opportunity to do some value add, building cool assets. We're going to talk a little bit about this project he's doing out in Spain right now. So, Mike, welcome to Radical Hospitality.
Thank you, Zeke. It's a pleasure being on and having a conversation with you.
Well, let's just hop into it. So, Mike, your background is pretty unique. You started as obviously in the Navy and then in commercial airlines and then pivoted into real estate investment. Sounds like you've owned around 1,300 units across a lot of various property types. What caused you to make this transition from a pretty stable, probably successful pilot into real estate, leaving a W-2 into something that's a little riskier? What drew you over to the dark side?
Yeah, it is the dark side. And when I first got started, what was funny is I got started prior to being an airline pilot. It's like, dang it, just like all of us, you read that Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it draws you in. But
sucks you in, doesn't he?
It sucks you in. And I was very fortunate over Halloween to go to a party with him.
I bet he's an interesting character.
He's interesting, man. He was really good, really fun costume. But anyway, so, I got started, what I say, the PG days, which is pre-Google, easy to buy homes. All of a sudden I did it. I had some money, about 8 homes, and then failed miserably, man. I mean, it's like I couldn't go on the internet. And how do you become a landlord? That was the hard part. What forms do you need? How do you evict people? How do you do anything? There's no one in a small town in Indiana that can teach you all that sort of stuff. So it absolutely failed, and then became the airline pilot. And I was like, well, all those rich people. And to me, way back then, it was about money. It's not about that now. And I tell people the money will come, but that's not the reason you get into this. I started getting back into it. And then when the 07, 08 came around, I was like, now's the time. And then I just went bam and ended up, I'm now at around 1,500 units owner managed. But, that's how it is. It was like my wife had a good W-2. It's like, what do I do with my extra money? It's like, it never left me. It's like, I need to get back into the real estate thing.
Yeah. So you started in single family and, it's oftentimes the things that we fail that I feel like we learn the most. So it sounds like you had a good learning session and then we're able to stack onto that and start doing some multifamily things. And, if you were going since 99, so this isn't your first rodeo, so you've been building it up over time. What did those phases look like? Like, how did you go from 1 to 2 to 1,300?
It was the onesies, and then it went to the fourplex. And then I'd sell it.
And were you buying hold or were you fixing flipping?
I was fixing and flipping at the beginning. That's how you get that many units. Once I started learning, once the internet came up and I could understand some things, then it was like, okay, this is how people are doing it. So I buy a fourplex, fix it up, raise the rents. The whole routine, sell it. Then it was an 8-plex, and then 2 8-plexes, then 2 8-plexes, then the 12-plex, then the 28-plex. And then it just started bouncing. And then what I was doing was I was also got into the management of side of it. So I was owning and managing at the same time, because what I realized is I had hired a property management group, and they can scam you. And that's what I learned, is that it's like, man, why am I not making any money? Well, they're nickel and diming me to death. So I fired them. It's like, you know what? I can do this. So did it for a while, and then, then became an airline pilot. And then I was like, man, I need to hire another property management group. And I got injured as an airline pilot. And then that's when I was like, you know what? I can make more money not being 4 different time zones in one day, relax a little bit. And that's when the acceleration came. And then it was, there were 50 plexes. Then I started buying 100, 120 plexes. And it just kind of snowballed. And then what happened though was about 8 years ago, someone came in and said, hey, I want to buy your portfolio. And I was like, nope, I am golfing every day. I have people in charge of the different, I built up a whole team, but they came back 4 times. And I was like, God, man, I am a fool if I don't take all this money. I've never seen this kind of money in my entire life. Took it. And then I was like, well, now what? Because out here in Arizona, I don't know if it's the same in Colorado, but all of a sudden the cap rate started compressing. 3.5, 4 caps. And I was like, I'm not buying that because I had bought everything at 8 to 10 to 12 cap. So that's when I got into hotels, because hotels it has those higher cap rates.
I want to compare and contrast a little bit. You said that you did a first kind of go at real estate and you failed. And then it seems like this second go, you've been able to kind of figure some things out to make it work and eventually be able to exit, which congratulations, man. That's awesome. What were the things that you failed at that you did differently kind of the second go?
There's going to be thoughts in your head that you think are real, but they're not. You have no excuses. You have podcasts. You have Google. You have at your fingertips all the research and information available to you. When I got started, I didn't know how to do anything. Buying is simple. I mean, here's a mortgage. What I learned is I'd go into apartment complexes and I say, hey, can I take home your application? Hey, can I do this? And then I just take it and use it. I mean, that's how it happened back then. And then you could go into Staples and you could have this whole, you could buy these bundles on the racks, and it would be like the eviction process, or this is the application process. You could buy them that way. But that was my biggest mistake, is just not knowing how to be a landlord and then being too nice. And ladies and gentlemen, here's what it is. Remember, it's a business. You're not your best buddies of your tenants, because then your tenants will take advantage of you. This is a business. You still have a mortgage. You can't tell your bank that say, hey, my tenant's running into kind of a hard time. Can I not pay my mortgage this month? What are they going to say? So just remember, and that was where I was, I was too nice to people and let them take advantage of me. Yeah. That was a big lesson.
That's probably part, you don't learn that till you do it. I was talking with my nephew. He's up from Texas this week, and he's interested in getting into real estate investing. Why don't you start reading some books? I've got, a whole shelf that you can start with. Let me just point you to a couple places out. Well, I don't really read, Uncle Zeke. And I was like, well, then you won't really earn, because if you want to learn, if you want to earn, then you need to have to learn, and then you need to read. But you're also in a time where, like, hey, I didn't have podcasts and YouTube, and go do the education, but don't just do the education. You do the education and then go do it, and just start at a first level. And you're going
to spend the money anyway. Mm-hmm. Whether it's in failing or learning. So you might as well do it in learning, because you have a lot higher success ratio.
Yeah. And, I've got a young teenage kid that's getting out into college as well. And, same kind of level of his nephew. And, you could either go spend the money at a university, or you spend the money getting out and, getting the education for exactly what you want to do. If it's real estate, that's great, but dive in and do that and pay the money to learn, even if it's mentoring or is somebody at the time, because, that's just going to be life. You can give it to a university, or you can give it to, entrepreneurship and business. I understand you've pivoted to hotel space. You kind of built up a multifamily portfolio. It sounds like you made a good exit at it. Got a little bit of press on, the returns weren't as good. What types of hotels have you been getting into, and how did you start into that space? It's pretty distinctly different from multifamily.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't care how many multifamily you have. Hotels it's not real estate. It's a business. You're buying a business. And here's the thing. You say, well, I don't know how to do that, so I'm not going to get into it. That's another excuse. I was thinking the same thing, but here's what you do. If you get into a different asset class, and this is what I did with hotels, is I found someone through networking that had 25 years experience in hotels. And I said, hey, you're going to be my sensei. You're going to teach me everything you know. You're going to find me hotels. You're going to teach me how to find hotels. You're going to run my hotel, be the operator. And then, but I can't pay you. I'm not going to pay you, but I'm going to give you a piece of the profit. I'm going to give you some ownership in it. So now they have an incentive to make this hotel successful, right? So that's what you do. You don't say, hey, here's $100,000 a year, run my hotel. There's no incentive. But what I could do is say, I'm not going to pay you. I'll pay you some property management fees, but I'll pay you at the end. So there's a profit sharing, and now they're incented, and that's what I like to do in all the developments I have is give someone a piece of the profit. So now there's an incentive. Now I know that they're going to be working their butts off for me. instead of just giving them a good salary. So that's how I got into hotel. He took me under his wing, and we're still partners today. He's going to be the partner in the Spain project. He's going to run the operations there along with our other team. So that's how you do it. So don't just jump in. Again, it's all about learning. I've made a lot of money. I have a lot of success. I still have business mentors. I still have books that I read. You never stop learning because it always pivots. It always changes.
How did you structure that deal? What type of percentage did you give him, and what did you bring versus, your partner bring?
I brought the money, and it was a JV agreement, joint venture, and I gave him 20% on all distributions. So we do owner distributions, so like on a monthly basis, I get money and he gets some money. We're getting ready to, it's under contract. So it's, if you think 7 years ago, bought it for a little under 5, we're going to sell for 8.7. That's not bad.
Is that a branded hotel that you guys are getting ready to sell?
Yeah. It's a Quality Inn. It's a choice. So, up to now, I've always done some franchise hotels. You just buy them and sell them or rebranded. Some of the things that I do is I'll go in and we'll buy a hotel that is not doing too well. And one of the things is the seller might have put in the wrong type of franchise. So that's a whole other thing is, why put in, a certain franchise when it's all truck drivers and things like that. You don't need a mid-market or a higher market type of, you just need the Motel 6, the Quality Inns, those give me free breakfast, free internet, and go. So a lot of times we'll rebrand, repaint it, put in the money to get it up and current with the franchise, and then sell it. So that's kind of the hotel fix and flip.
Going from one brand to the next, what are you looking at? Are you looking at their market share of people they may be able to bring, or are you looking at the percentage of revenue that you have to pay that brand? And, what does that look like?
They're all pretty much the same as far as franchise fees, marketing fees. There's like 3% for this, 5% for this, 7%, but it equals, 12 to 13%. But what you do is say, what town is this? What kind of town is this? Is it a factory town? Is it an industrial town? Is it a tourist town? So you look at the type of people, and what we do in the hotel business is it's called drivers. What drives people to stay in this place? Is it transient? Or people that are going to be there for a week? Are there attractions? So those are called drivers. If it's near a university, what's a driver? Maybe the parents coming in to seeing their kids. If it's near a concert venue, that's a driver that brings people in. It could be a tourist place like the Red Rocks. So you look at those drivers and then you say, through our experience, these are the types of hotels that work in this type of an area. And then we go and say, why is this underperforming? It could be just an absentee owner that just doesn't know what he's doing. And then we could go in and fix that one up. Or we could say, you know what? A lot of times, let's say Wyndham or Choice, they'll come in and say, Mike, we're not in that area, or we don't have this type of hotel in that area. We'll give you what's called key money. They'll actually pay me to put their name on that hotel. So basically they're paying for what's called the PIP, which is the property enhancement. So I can renovate it for free because it is now, they've paid me to put their name on it.
So they may come in, like a Wyndham might come in and give you a PIP incentive to do some of that interior renovation, but get it up to their brand level.
Yep. Yeah. They'll give me, they say, Mike, if you go and you pit them up against each other, it's like, hey, what? This one's willing to give me $7,000 a key. What are you going to do? And so let's say who wants me the most. And then sometimes there's a break franchise fee for like if I don't want the previous, I have to pay them
to get out.
So it all calculates into what I'm going to spend. And so that's how it works.
So like that Quality Inn deal is like a $5 million deal. Did it start out as Quality Inn, or did you do a brand change?
Yeah, it was a Quality Inn. We're looking at changing it to like a Best Western or something like that. But there wasn't a lot of Choice properties, and there wasn't one that's a mid-level economy brand. So we kept it as a Quality Inn. Other ones we've changed, since like Radisson's, we got out of all of our Radisson's. Choice bought them. And a lot of times what happens is hotels are kind of like car dealerships. You ever wonder, you have like this car dealer row? It's like, man, it's like every brand.
All hanging out together.
They're all hanging out together. It's like, how can they do that? It's like, well, you have the Ford lovers and the Chevy lovers and the Dodge lovers. And the same thing with hotels. That's why you have a Hilton next to a Choice, next to a Wyndham, because you're stuck with one brand. There's one brand that you like. So, but here's the thing is when Choice bought Radisson, a lot of times our hotels were right next to another Choice that was the same type of level. And I was like going, hey, you can't do that. And it's like you're competing, and they didn't care. So I was like, well, okay.
What are the components you're usually looking to change out? You mentioned like $7,000 a key. I've heard, $20,000 a key. Are we changing out like just the furnishing, signage? Like what are like usually the key components they're wanting you to pull to get up to a different brand? And what's kind of the range usually per key to, do that?
The higher the level of the hotel, if it's like an economy brand or just a mid-level brand, it doesn't cost that much. If it's a Hilton or Marriott, it could be $20,000 to $30,000 a key because it's just nicer furnishings, more involved. There's usually F&B, which food and beverage type of a place, the bars. So what happens is the new franchise will come and say, okay, they'll go through all the rooms, they'll go through all this sort of stuff. And this is another thing. There are some franchises that say, you know what, your furniture is good enough. It doesn't have to look exactly. We just need these touches, which are like the Wingate look, or this type of a look. So there's some that are a little more compromising that way. And then there's some that's like, oh, nope, every single, even the piece of papers, everything has to change. The remote control has to change. It's like they get crazy with it. But they come in and they'll say, here's 4 pages of everything you have to do before this. You have to do before opening. This is 120 days. This is 6 months. And then I go, you know what? I'm not doing those, and I resubmit it. So it becomes this back and forth thing. It's like, look, I'm not changing the porte cochere. That's going to cost me $30,000 because nobody cares. I'm not going to change the trim because you want me to change the trim. It's stupid. So you go back and forth in all these things, and you win some and you lose some, but it's just all negotiations of it's kind of like, this is what they wish. And then there's reality. It's like, I'm not.
Yeah. How many keys was that quality in?
81.
It seems like on the branded, I would be nervous going in on and doing a boutique on these higher numbers. It seems like a branded, like it helps you fill those rooms. Maybe they're a little bit more controlling. Sounds like you got a pretty big, like a 12% fee, maybe goes to the brand. I assume you're doing like a 3 or 4% fee then to management, something like that. So maybe you're 15, 18. Is average, like you said, is about a $5 million purchase. Is that about what it would take to get into that game? And then how are you financing those? Are those usually bought cash, or you
usually start out depending on if we have anything left? We'll do an SBA.
Still doing SBA on?
Yeah, we'll do an SBA, maybe 7A, and then refinance it. If I want to buy something else and it's like, oh man, it's like I need some more SBA, and we'll refinance. But then if it's in the rural area, we'll do a USDA, which is really good. A lot of people don't realize that you can do hotels USDA loans, which is very low down payment. There's some fees to application fees and like that, but it's and some of them are non-recourse, which is nice. We've done CMBS loans, which are popular for hotels, and ladies and gentlemen, CMBS is kind of like a market. The stock market has your loan.
So those three there, you mentioned like a 7A, SBA 7A, a CMBS, and a USDA. Just high level, like percentage wise on each of those, and which one usually has kind of better terms? Like, why would you do one versus the other?
Well, the conventional is always going to be the higher ones,
higher percentage,
the higher rates. Yeah. So the SBA, as soon as you get into SBA, there's one. It's 100% government funded, and then there's another one where the bank and the SBA split it. Maybe a 60-40. And if you do the split, then the bank will give you a little bit less rate. But when you get into SBAs, it's this is kind of funny, but the government's not in the business of making money. So they give you lower rates. It's a pain in the butt to do them because there's like 4, 5, 6 pages. You have all this crap you have to do, and you return it, and then they give you another 3 pages of stuff to do. So doing a government loan is a pain, but it's usually a lot better rate. The last SBA was, I think, 3.5% or 4%. My latest conventional was 7.25%. USDA was around 3.5% or so. So you get into and what's good about the USDA is because it's usually non-recourse, very low terms. They're locked in for the 30 years. So you have this long period. So it's not like this variable rate or 5-year reset that a lot of the loans have. or a 10-year reset. And as long as you give back to the community, you have to hire people if you're constructing, and it's very easy for a hotel to do that because, yes, I'm hiring local people. The new one that I'm getting ready to build is going to be USDA.
And I've seen, I guess the USA is generally, like, you got to look on their map. They're generally a little bit more focused on rural areas. SBA kind of hits everywhere. Sounds like the conventional is higher. We've been in a little bit different market with the Red Hotel because it's new construction. It's been about a year, honestly, of just trudging through, paperwork and adding debt signers and a whole 9 yards to get to a point where we're about ready to go on it. But it sounds like if you purchase an existing asset that's got a cash flow statement that it can look at, it's a little bit easier, maybe a little bit shorter, but still pain in the butt. A little bit better rates. If you are on a time crunch, maybe you need to be looking at conventional. Is that kind of where you'd categorize those three? And then are you underwriting typically, when you're purchasing an existing asset, like 10%, equity, or
it's nowadays?
You said zero. That sounded
No,
a rare occasion, I'm sure. But,
yeah, no.
So typically, what kind of equity are you underwriting?
Back in the day, we could do 80% loan to value, and put 20% down. But now it's like the new one that we're getting ready to do is we're going to need 35 to 40%. And this is like a $30 million build. So we're going to have to come up with 35 to 40% of that.
And that's new construction.
And that's new construction.
On
the other one, but it's still, even an existing, even if it has good numbers, for some reason, and no one can tell me this, but hotels, they're flowing money to multifamily, whether it makes 3% or not. It's more risky, but hotels, some banks, a lot of banks it's not in their wheelhouse to do it. They see it as a riskier asset class. They've been looking at California too much or something like that, where they failed during COVID and things like that, because they were forced to close down. Maybe they're looking at that. They had assets like that, but they're not looking at the rest of the United States where, we were able to stay open and survive. But it's harder. So, you have higher LTVs and you have higher rates. I was looking at this one community bank, and they're over 8% right now for a hotel.
So you got a new one coming up that's new construction. Is that a Hilton?
Yeah, it's going to be a soft brand. It's called a Tapestry Collection. And ladies and gentlemen, this is another type of area that the franchisers are getting into, because all of us owners started complaining about, it's like, look, I don't want to have to change out my furniture every 5 years. It's stupid. And you're making me do this box look in like Sedona or in the Red Rocks or somewhere touristy. So they developed what's called soft brand. If you've ever heard like the Autograph Collection at Marriott, that's a soft brand. So you have, Marriott may not even be on the name, but you tie into their reservation system. And that's what we're doing with Hilton with the Tapestry Collection. I can make it look however I want, as long as it has the level of sophistication that they want in that type of a hotel. But it can be the Scottsdale chic look, with some Native American Southwest look. But I'm tying into their reservation system, which has over 110 million rewards members. So you want that to be associated so that day one in opening, I have the Hilton power, but I'm able to do what I want to as far as the design and look.
And will you start with like a template design that's got some basis of construction cost and then modify it? Or are you start with an architect from scratch?
They'll say, if it's going to be 120, 150 rooms, here are other hotels that have been built that'll look about like the footprint that you want. And I'll have all the drawings, all the CAD, all the design. And then I bring it to our architect and say, okay, you're going to put a rooftop bar on it. We're going to redesign some things, but we have a very strong starting template.
That's great. So you're starting with the base, but then you're hiring an architect to modify it. Like some rough numbers for construction costs. I don't know if it's construction cost per key and then soft cost. What is your architect and engineers charging you to make those modifications?
Well, they're ongoing. So it's $400 or $500 an hour. For the good ones, the cost per keys now, depending on what you do, what's great is the younger generation of hotels guests don't want anything really busy. They're very sparse. You don't need a closet anymore. You don't need a dresser drawer. They're not going to be 20-somethings and 30-somethings, they don't put, their clothes in a drawer. So you don't need a lot of the stuff. They just want a desk. They need a work. They need a TV. So actually the cost of construction has gone down a little bit, but we're still looking at upwards of $200,000 per key, depending on how fancy you get. Another 50,000 on top of that, depending on if you do marble floors and you do all this sort of stuff. But it's a minimum of 200,000 per key per room. That's not just what I put into the room. When I say 200,000 a key, that's for the whole hotel. The lobby, the rooftop bar. So that's all included.
Excluding land cost and soft costs, or including some of the soft costs?
Excluding soft costs.
Yeah, and then your architect and interior designer, engineers, are those...
That's all extra.
Hourly, or do they do a percentage?
Yeah, it's all hourly, because they come in and a lot of it is retainer work. It's like, okay, here's 10 grand and it gets me so many hours. And then they say, okay, here's this price point, here's this price point. And they go out and find things. They come out, and the architects and the interior designers have their own CAD where they can take the lobby and it's pretty neat. They put all the furniture inside the lobby with the chandeliers, and this is what your lobby would look like. So the technology is really good.
Let's pivot to, I understand you got a really cool project coming up in Barcelona. You kind of went multifamily and then kind of branded hotel. Thanks for diving into that and getting an understanding of that. What's caused the next shift to boutique? What made you want to look at that?
First we went through COVID, okay? And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, thank God COVID's over. Then we had the Great Resignation, and nobody wanted to work. And it's like, okay, come on, housekeepers, let's go. And it's like, well, we want $20 an hour plus Thursdays and Fridays off. And I'm like, or else I'm going to McDonald's, is what they said. And I'm like, going, really? You go to McDonald's, you're going to be smelling like grease at 2:00 in the morning. But then you had that, and then all of a sudden we had the economy, and now and then the economy's bad, interest rates are up, and minimum wages skyrocketing. So like, to own a business, it was really, really interesting. And one of my partners has an apartment in Barcelona. He's there half the year. He met a guy that did, I'm sure everyone's heard of BlackRock. He did all of their Spanish acquisitions. He did, I think, over 35 acquisitions for them around Europe. He retired, and he's now on the team working with us. And they kept coming and telling me, it's like, Mike, you got to go to Spain, specifically Catalonia, which is the Barcelona side. And I just didn't really understand it. It's like, they said, just come over here. And so they took me around to these places, and I'm like going, how much? It's like, really? That's it? It's like, and how much are they making? And I'm like going, why am I in the United States, where it's $250,000 per key, and I can buy a 1,000-year-old castle that everyone wants to stay in for next to nothing, because I found out why they're next to nothing. And, because there's no incentive for a European to actually be better than what they are now. That's kind of that socialistic.
What do you mean?
Thing. Most of the people in Spain have been brought up to say, look, you get free healthcare, you get free this, you get free college, you get all this sort of stuff. Just be happy with just making enough money where you can get an apartment, you get a car, maybe you can go on holidays, and that's it. And they're happy. They get a lot of time off. They don't want that much. They just want enough, and they're very friendly. They're very happy, and they just don't want the stress. It's more the mental type thing. Where over here, it's like, boom, boom, entrepreneurs, I got to make money. I got to do this. I got to do this. How much do you make? Well, I make this. You get together and argue and you fight with your boss. It's taboo to even talk about salaries and what you make over there. It's just like, they work hard, and that's all they want. So there's no incentive and they don't have the entrepreneur mindset. So they're not the ones going out and buying these boutique hotels. It's
our blessing and our curse as Americans.
It is. There's a blessing and
I don't know about you, Mike. It just can't stop the engine. It's like a drive. Yeah.
I had hair, before I started this journey. But
I might be catching up with you. My son keeps pulling out.
So they rely on foreign investment, to come in, and they got to find that investor. So these next to nothing, and ladies and gentlemen, this place, it's 40 minutes outside of northeast of Barcelona, is our Spanish property. It is 1,000 years old. If you can imagine, I can't even fathom 1,000 years old.
Crazy.
It's on mountaintop overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. And we currently have a syndication open to purchase that. We're looking at purchasing it. We'll probably close first quarter, probably April. Man, it's a thing. If you invest a certain amount, you get to stay there, 2 weeks out of a year, every year, depending on your CPA. it's a tax deduction, right? Because you're going to Europe to look at your asset. So if you have a good CPA, that European
I
vacation.
was telling you, Mike, before this call, I might hit you up this summer. Amy and I are looking at heading to Spain or Italy, and this property really, I mean, it is phenomenal.
It is phenomenal,
I
ladies
mean,
and gentlemen, if you
what a
look at it.
unique opportunity to do something that's different than anywhere else in the world. I'll make sure to put a link into that in the show notes if anybody's interested in checking that out. I assume that is a qualified investor only, like 506C. Is that how you guys are raising capital on that one?
Yeah, I always do C's. Well, I didn't do a C once, and it was like, oh my God, all these people started like, hey, I need my money back, and I'm like, it doesn't work that way, And finally, I was like, oh, you know what, I need to do the C where it's, here's Mike, here's 50 grand, here's 250 grand, and it doesn't matter to them. They can lose it, but I only do C's, $50,000 minimums. So I always do low minimums.
It's a good way for an investor to get to know you as well.
It is.
Work with you.
It is.
Yeah.
And people always tell me, what is syndication, how they work and things like that. I keep them everything very simple. There's a preferred return, and then there's a split afterwards. There's none of these 3 different types of waterfalls, 4 different waterfalls. It's my God, if I can't even understand it, why would I do it? So it's extremely simple. If you want to invest with me, it's extremely simple. It's straight and forward.
What type of preferred do you guys do on your deal? And
yeah, I usually do 8%. I usually do 8% preferred returns, and then either like an 80-20 or 75-25 split, and that's it. There's none of these. If I do this IRR, if I do this, then it flips and switches so that I get more money. It's like I make enough money. I just love these assets, so you just keep it. The investors are number one. They should double their money, before I get a lot of the money.
How long have you been doing syndications? Has that always been part of your multifamily strategy that you brought into hotels?
I didn't have that many multifamily with my own money. You do syndications, you do JV agreements, depending on who it is. If you have one investor says, hey, Mike, here's $2 million, it's like, you don't need to do a syndication. You just do a JV agreement.
On this property, are you doing any kind of value add, or what's the plans for the property?
We're buying this Spain property with cash. There's not going to be any leverage at all. And right now, that's the best thing to do in Spain. It's inside what's called the Montseny National Forest. It's in a park. And if you look 360 degrees around this entire property, there's nothing but rolling hills and forests. And over on one hilltop, way on the next hilltop, is 800-year-old cathedral. So that's all you see. And then you look down and you see the Mediterranean Sea. Well, this used to be at some point within the last 1,000 years, had cattle and had livestock and things like that. So there's a lot of plateaus. And we've already been approved. We're going to build individual casitas or villas that are going to be standalone. We've been approved for 4 or 5 of them. And the mayor of the town says we can probably do more if we can fit them in. So that's how we're going to value add it. We're going to increase our room count. And then it has a wonderful restaurant. And we have 2 Michelin star Barcelona chefs that are looking at wanting to take over the restaurant part. And it seats maybe 30 people in the restaurant. So they want to do this little high-end Spanish type of a restaurant. And it'll be Michelin star. So that'll really value it.
I saw that it wasn't operating after COVID as a B&B or as a hotel. Like it was just doing events. What caused it to not continue to operate it?
An old owner, is basically what's happening. It's off market right now. And they did wonderful. This was a top 25 small hotel in all of Spain. It was in the top 25 in all of Spain. And he did an absolutely wonderful job. COVID came, shut him down, and he's in his mid-70s. And he just didn't have the energy to get it back. And he what happened is he got married at this place in 1977, and it came up for sale, and he's like this passionate. It's like, I'm buying this place that we got married at. So his whole thing was and he'd never owned a hotel before. So he'd never, it was not a money thing. It wasn't an investment thing. It was a passion thing. That's what the Spanish do, right? They're very passionate. After COVID, he was like, it's like, I'm getting old. I just don't have the energy. But all of these places, these marketing firms and event coordinators that had worked with him in the past just said, hey, can we still do this? Because there's still a lot of want and need for destination weddings and events at this place. And he goes, yeah, sure. So he's still making 400,000 or 500,000 euros, not doing anything.
How many keys or how many rooms? Like 20?
It's 11 keys.
11 keys. And then it's got a wedding events center, or is that all outdoors, part of the landscape?
It's all part of, so it sits on this mountaintop behind, on the side, down below. There's different levels where you have all these outdoor events. And then down below even further, there's a 2,000 square foot event center that has its own restrooms, bar area with the big plateau. And that's where you do a lot of you could have 100 people and do a convention type space or a large wedding. Most of them are boutique weddings. So there's this one beautiful area, this little plateau where most of the weddings take place, and it overlooks the Med. It overlooks all the mountains, and it's just the most beautiful thing. But they're usually, most of the things are, you look at it, it's 20 to 30 people.
Have you designed the villas yet that you guys are going to do there?
We have a firm that does the prefab villas, and then they ship them out and put them in. So we're working on that. We want to make sure, number one, it's the construction material is good. Nothing out of China. We've looked at some of those things, and it's just like balsa wood type stuff. We found a company that does a really good job, and so we're designing the size. And it's going to be a suite. It's going to have a large living room. It's going to have a little balcony, little porch, a bedroom area, nice size bathroom area, with showers and bathtubs and things like that. So it's going to be a nice size villa.
Yeah, that'll be cool. And that's all part of this first phase, or are you doing a purchase syndication and then a construction syndication or something later? Or
it'll be part of the raise.
Yeah.
And we're getting it so inexpensive, and I think we're actually going to get it cheaper than what's in my PPM paperwork. But I'm just going to add a couple hundred. We're getting for about $50,000 a unit, for those villas. So it's not a lot of money. Nice. So it's just part of the raise.
And this is about like a $2.5-3 million raise.
Yeah. We're, ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe this. We're actually going to buy this for around $2 million. And I just scratched my head and I'm like, oh my God, especially for what it grossed in 2019 prior to COVID. And I'm like, please, can I find 10 of these? It's unbelievable. So what I'd want is, if I'm buying it for $2 million, I need, let's say 3 or 4 for the villas. Then I'd like an extra 3 to 4 for just the capital expenses. I'm very conservative, and I'd love having money in the bank just in case something happens. So it's going to be like a $2.7 to $3 million raise.
Fantastic, man! I can't wait to see this. This is
I can't either.
Yeah, it'll be a really cool project. So that's exciting. Kind of pivoted into the boutique hotel space. You're raising capital on this. You've got new construction going on the Hilton. You mentioned a couple times about building out a team. Is this all you, Mike? Do you have a back of house team at this point to get some of these things done? What's the Mike Stohler team look like?
Yeah, that's great. Number one, you have about 4 or 5 attorneys that do all the paperwork and all that sort of stuff with you. A CFO. So the 2 most important people right now, is your finance guy and your attorneys, and neither one's cheap. So, but here's the thing: is they save you a lot of money in the background. We have a property management group now, and then for the Spanish side, we have an entire team. We have a husband and wife that's going to come in and run it's called a masía, is what this, the technical term for this estate. It's called a masía. So they're going to run and be the caretakers. And that's what's so great about something like this is all you need is a caretaker. You don't need a GM and the manager of this and the manager of that. I have Vic, which is a partner. He's been a partner in some other hotel deals. He has a place in Barcelona, so he's there half the year. He's on the ground there now, coordinating stuff with the attorneys over there. And then Jordy he's done a lot of things for some of the largest groups, some of the largest REITs. He's retired and just loves to help us out. So he's part of the Barcelona team. He's an architect, finder. He's the guy that says, this is what it is. This is how you do it. This is how the jurisdiction works, the different counties, the regions. He meets with the mayors and negotiates. So he's our Spanish speaking. He was born in Barcelona.
Is he a partner in the deal, or is he
He's a partner. Remember how I do things.
I like that.
He's I don't pay him anything. I got here's $1,000. I'll give him some money. but it's like, oh, nope, you're going to have about 3% of all of our deals. So
I
that works
preach
out.
that to a lot of young architects. You gotta learn to work for service, but at some point, you really need to, learn real estate and, put your money where your mouth is and, invest into deals that you believe in and especially people that you believe in and relationships. It's the best way to get your feet in, understand what your clients are going through. So we try to do that a lot at Root. I try to mentor young guys that are getting in to be able to do that as well. I think that's great that you're opening up the opportunity. Couple last fire questions here. What is the best advice you've ever been given, as you've been getting into real estate?
It's probably what I have on the top of my desk that I look at every day. All of you people that are getting in brand new, it's not a money thing. Don't do it because all these real estate people are rich. The money will come. Find out what your why is. Is it because you don't want to work the 9 to 5 anymore? You're tired of working for Big Brother. You're tired of working for a corporation. What is your why? And then if you stick to that and you're able to work from home, a lot of people can't. They just don't have the discipline. But if you're able to work from home, you'll be successful. Always get a mentor, business mentor, psychological mentor. You do all these different things. But what I have above here is my why. And what I wanted to do is build a life that I don't need a vacation from. I can work anywhere in the world. I can rent an RV for 30 days, 60 days, work from an RV. I can be up in the mountains somewhere. I can be in Spain. I can be on a cruise line and still work. I'm working and on a vacation. So I don't need a vacation for my work.
Yeah. I mean, when your work's play, you're having this much fun, why do other things? You can go and go to Spain and check on your work. I mean, that's not a bad deal.
Not a bad deal. Plus it's tax deductible.
Yeah.
Business trip.
What book has had the biggest influence on you and do you recommend most often?
Money Secrets of the Rich. What I found out, ladies and gentlemen, especially when I started making money, it's like, I want this car, I want this car, I want a second house, I want this and vacations. And then you really learn it's like the millionaire next door. My neighbors have no idea what I do. A lot of times they don't know how much I make. But when you look at what the real rich do, many of them just buy used cars. They pay cash for them. They always wanted a Mercedes convertible, 500 SL. They get one that's 4 years old, so they don't have to pay the depreciation. They do the same. They're in the same house for, 15, 20 years. They don't lavishly spend. They don't need fancy clothes. They don't want to advertise. It's the fancy clothes for people that are trying to be rich. That really changed my mindset, that book. And the author is John Burley, who's one of my mentors. It changes you, it's like it changes your mindset, because if you never had money, then all of a sudden you have a lot. You look at most sports stars that make $200 million that are broke within 5 or 6 years.
And then where are you currently learning the most? What area are you going? Mentors, mastermind podcasts? What's been the big theory that, you're consuming or learning from?
There's several podcasts I look at, especially in books. Jake and Gino's, good guys that are friends of ours. I listen to them. I do a lot of back and forth within Bigger Pockets. A lot of it is just me having people like Zeke or someone on the podcast and just learning back and forth. There are different places called RIAs in all the cities, ladies and gentlemen. Always here in Arizona, it's called ASRIA. It's a real estate action groups. They're networking groups. Just go online and say, wherever town you're from, what networking place is there? And go to it. Hunter Thompson's another great person that I've spoken at his conferences. Just never stop learning. There's always books that are coming out. There are also some syndication classes. Don't just start a syndication. There are some people, I think Hunter Thompson is one of them. They go to different cities and do syndication seminars.
I went to Brad Blazer's in Austin last year, and it was very good. And I'm listening to a lot of Hunter Thompson's, very good. He has some good books out. And this has been great, Mike. Very educational, fun to get to know you and meet you a little bit. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, the website is www.gateway. PE is in private equity, gatewayprivateequity.com. Always on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel. I have my own podcast, The Richer Geek. So there's just all of these. I'm always doing something. You always find me. Let me know if you found me on Zeke's podcast. And I reach out to everyone individually. It's what I love doing. You're not just a number for me.
Mike, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, everybody.